Thank you, Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like, before starting on my favorite topic, South Sudan, I would like to say that I have listened to the 11 panelists, and certain commonalities seem to be coming across. We have been saying that our governments, repressive or democratic or whatever we label them, they have all willingly agreed to set up these commissions. They were not forced to in the main. However, all of them seem to have failed in the implementation of well-intended recommendations. We need to ask why. The political class that you've been talking about seems never to be punished, generally. So I assume that across the continent, there is a lot of impunity to contend with. But as I was sitting, I was trying to find out who exactly is hoodwinking who. Is it politicians, the political class, hoodwinking the rest of the nation, or hoodwinking the donor community, or a combination of both, or trying to hoodwink themselves? It seems to me, also from what you have said, that our populations in general are not very politically conscious. Maybe South Africa is waking up. But beyond that, it seems that this would be a wonderful group of individuals and institutions to carry the dialogue further, because we have a common agenda. How can we assist each other across this vast and important continent to learn from each other the lessons that we're stating here? South Sudan, I think for many of you in this room, maybe it's something you get in the newspaper. You may not realize that South Sudan, we have been at war with ourselves for at least 350 years non-stop. I repeat, more than 350 years non-stop, dating back to the Kingdom of Kush. We have been invaded by, you name it. Anybody from the north, south, east, west have come in to take, and take in a vicious manner. The British, the Turks, the Egyptians, some calling themselves Arabs, but are actually Africans, ashamed of their blackness, ashamed to be called Africans. You may not realize also that in Sudan, we had the longest running apartheid situation. Very similar to South Africa, but it was worse. Because at least in South Africa, you knew you were black, white, or you were something else. In Sudan, it became a psychological disease where if you spoke Arabic, you were an Arab. You were never an African. The governments of Sudan, we say the governments of Khartoum, systematically de-Africanized the entire African population. And they tried to Islamize the non-Islamic population, which gets very fascinating because it's a matter of mental illness, and I do not apologize. South Sudanese, who are basically Africans, were tortured, apart from being captured as slaves and taken to the Arab world. I know when you think of slavery, you tend to think of Africans going to the Americas. But the Africans who went to the Arab world were many more in numbers. And the types of conditions we faced in the Arab world were worse because our men were eunuchs. What do you think a eunuch is? It's a castrated man. So we never had the opportunity of having children with Arab women. At least in the other part of the globe, men could do other things, and so the race continued. Having said that, we came to a situation where for South Sudanese, we could take it no more. And we said we would fight against the Khartoum pseudo-Arabized government. And we fought. We fought a popular war led by a military individual who had defected from the Khartoum government, John Garang. I think you may know the name. When the war was happening, this was a people's war. It was a people's revolution, fought by old, fought by young, and really fought. Women were carrying bullets under our tops, the cloths, the materials we wore. And in South Sudan, there's a lot of respect for women because women are mothers. And as I speak in my community and in most of our communities, if I sit in the pathway of those young men or women who want to go to war, and I say, no, you will not go to war, there's no man or woman, no matter how strong he thinks he is, or how weak, or how angry, who will dare to step over my foot and go to war. So women have a certain power, but we have another power. If I tell my children to go to war, they will go to war gladly and kill. All of us in South Sudan, we have roles as men and women. Our men are our protectors. At the very early age of about 12 years, all our men are taught to be warriors, protectors. And it's not protectors against birds. It's protectors against any human being who dare to come into our territory. We are a fortunate land because we are naturally inhospitable. We have the largest wet water land on earth, the Sud, which means if you are not South Sudanese, you can't get to us alive. But if you're smart enough to use the other routes, we have the God-given mosquito. And if you don't get mosquito bites from birth, you will not survive. We have snakes, wild animals, all kinds of beautiful things. And I don't mean to scare you, but it's true. That has caused, and we are extremely rich naturally. Very, very well. The water sources, the trees, the wild animals that adventurous men from other places love to come in and steal while they're stealing beautiful women and whatever they put their hands on. Now, all of those things caused the British government and the Khartoum and the Egyptian government to consider us very hostile people, because we seldom say yes. In the interaction, South Sudan was cut off from the modern government affairs of the world. We were a restricted area. What it meant is that we had no access to formal education. And any South Sudanese you meet who have been to primary school or beyond went there because of the churches, not the government. Our participation in the national government was almost nil. We were ruled from Khartoum, as I said, by pseudo-Arab individuals who tried to Islamize the African population. It meant that when we decided that we no longer wished to be with Khartoum, there was an interim period. We had bloody war. I have been bombed 4 or 5 times, I don't know how many times. You hear the antelope. And human beings, you cannot hear distant objects, but the chickens and the dogs can. So when the dogs begin to wag their tail and say, "Ah," you know the antelopes from Khartoum are coming. You get under your bunker, and our bunkers are just holes in the ground to prevent being cut from the bombings. Okay, so we had enough, and we decided as a population, through an election, 99.5% of the population voted to separate from our relatives in Khartoum. And that was a fantastic election, because unless you were on your deathbed, you had to go and vote. Young men would carry individuals to vote. And for women, when you got there, they would say, "Mama, please go and vote first, because you have to go home to prepare the food for us. We can come late." So it was a very enabling environment, free and fair according to the international community. Shortly after the election, John Garang became the vice president of Sudan. His vision was really not a separate South Sudan, but a Sudan in total that was of a different dispensation, a Sudan in which all Sudanese would have basic rights and freedoms. He lost his life very shortly after becoming the vice president. He lost his life in a plane crash on his way from Uganda. I have a lot of respect for his wife, because at that time, the country of South Sudan, we were just jumping. We could not sit still with excitement. We were now free. We could go anywhere we want to in our country. We had no bosses to tell us what to do and what not to do. We could pray to any god we wanted to. We could start a nation. We could build a nation. When John Garang died, his wife had a choice. She could have said, he was killed by the guys in Khartoum. She could have also said, he was killed by one of our own. Or she could have said, he's coming from Uganda in a presidential helicopter. He must have been killed by Museveni. If she had uttered any of those 3 words, we would have killed anybody related to who she thought. And I mean killed. But she said instead, God gives and God takes. this man, at least, he left a vision of Africa, a vision of unity, a vision of freedom. So let's bury him and move on with the vision. And for most of us, that's what we tried to do. But as I said, our history has been very bloody over the years. We have about 73 different ethnic groups, over 50 different languages, a highly unschooled population, 6 months of heavy rainfall, without road infrastructure. So we're not people who have the opportunity to know each other as groups, as individuals. We don't have the common marketplaces, and we don't have the schools and the psychological things to help